This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening on the other side of the pond with Bitcoin. I want to talk about Christine Lagarde, HSBC, and what Lagarde calls funny business. If you didn't see the headlines a couple days ago, Christine Lagarde, who's the president of the ECB, the European Central Bank, has said that Bitcoin is highly speculative, and that it needs to be regulated at a global level. She doesn't like it because she says it's been used for money laundering and some reprehensible activity. Now, when a central banker calls you reprehensible, that's pretty harsh because these people really are the bottom of the barrel. She does make an interesting point when she says there has to be regulation and that it has to be at a global level, simply because if any country or any jurisdiction doesn't get on board, there is an escape hatch there, and there could be an escape hatch in terms of fiat on-ramps and off-ramps. Now, the interesting thing about Lagarde is she fails to mention how European banks have been used to move, according to this article from September 2020, over $2 trillion worth of illicit funds laundered through the European banking system. Total fines paid by banks for money laundering is approximately 50% of the current Bitcoin market cap. So over the past 10 years, I assume this includes European and US and maybe Asian banks as well, 330 billion in fines. So this is interesting coming from someone who hasn't done a whole lot of house cleaning of herself. This is because Christine Lagarde is an extremely corrupt individual. When she was head of the IMF, she was found guilty of paying basically a friend of Sarkozy. And in spite of this, she still was able to keep her job at the IMF for some bizarre reason. But this is the person who's worried about a decentralized, fair form of currency. And you can see why, because she's part of the old guard. There's probably a good pun in there with Lagarde, which I'll pass on. So unfortunately, she does not have the moral high ground here. The one reason clearly that she wants to get rid of Bitcoin, or at least try to shut it down in Europe, is because Bitcoin is a way to evade negative interest rates. I just heard an interview with Plan B yesterday, who's in the Netherlands. And if I remember correctly, he said that these negative interest rates, a lot of people will tell you that they just apply to people who have like $1 million or more in a European bank. He said in the Netherlands, I believe it was something like $25,000 and above, you are actually paying a negative interest rate of 0.5%, which is just outrageous. You think it's bad in the US with 0% interest rates. But negative interest rates are actually confiscating the fruits of your labor. If you're enjoying this video and finding it helpful, I'd encourage you to hit that subscribe and like button. I think Max Kaiser had a great comment here. Christine Lagarde orders all triangles to have 200 degrees. Gold's atomic weight moved to 42. Gravity to stop working in Jamaica, etc., etc. The point, the rather humorous point here, is that when something is global and decentralized, it's very difficult to regulate. You could even close the fiat on and off ramps to Bitcoin at this point, and Bitcoin would still function as a system. It could still be used on a peer-to-peer basis for individuals to send money to each other. So unfortunately, if Lagarde had a little bit more of the moral high ground, it might be okay to take her seriously. But for anyone to accuse Bitcoin, this is a really old talking point from 2013, 2014, that Bitcoin is used for illegal activity. The latest estimates I've seen suggest that something like 1% of Bitcoin is currently used for some sort of illegal activities. Again, it's a completely free form of money. It doesn't care what your politics are. Bad people can use Bitcoin. Good people can use Bitcoin. It's a little bit like fire in that way. And I'm sure Christine Lagarde would try to regulate fire if she was able to. Jeff Booth had a great response as well to Christine Lagarde. She tries to hide this sort of stuff under the cloak of environmentalism. Here's a tweet from Lagarde from January 11th. Important discussions on rethinking our relationship with nature at today's One Planet Summit for Biodiversity. We must mobilize private and public financing to build an economy that sustains biodiversity and protects the Earth's ecosystems. Now, this is interesting coming from someone whose background is in law, the IMF, and a central banker. I'm in favor of protecting the Earth's ecosystems and biodiversity, but someone like this, who has done really nothing for the world except debase currencies and enable politicians to make corrupt payments to their buddies, how she would have the nerve to come out and say something like this. And Jeff Booth really makes some good points here. Of course, she doesn't respond to him. Could you please tell me, this is Jeff Booth in the tweet, could you please tell me how a monetary system that requires growth at all costs, and two, because that is impossible, will print endless money to artificially make prices go up forever, is consistent with protecting the Earth's ecosystems? Fiat currency, money printing, negative interest rates, low interest rates, all of these financial mechanisms prevent the smart allocation of capital. They lead to lots of silly projects that should never be financed. You can basically finance the stupidest project in the world when interest rates are at zero or negative. Money needs to cost something. There needs to be a positive interest rate, and there has to be an opportunity cost associated with investments. Otherwise, you get what's called malinvestment. Europe is full of malinvestment. The US is full of malinvestment. China is full of malinvestment as well. And this is one thing that happens when central bankers get involved and print more money and thus secretly steal from those who earn honest livings and just want to store their cash in a savings account risk-free and not have it confiscated by people like Lagarde with negative interest rates. Also wanted to talk about HSBC saying they're not going to process any cryptocurrency payments in the UK. It says HSBC does not process cryptocurrency payments or allow customers to bank money from digital wallets. We don't need to go into all the HSBC scandals. This, again, is a very corrupt organization that's had one scandal after another, and not allowing you to use your money in the way that you want to send it where you want to receive it from where you want to. Obviously, if you're committing some illegal activity, go after the illegal activity. If you're importing illegal drugs, if you're sending money to terrorists, etc., go after that. You don't need to tar everyone with the same brush. So a lot of people in the UK have been asking me, what should I do about this? Should I be worried? You shouldn't be worried. HSBC is just going to lose market share to the other banks. And if all the UK banks do this, unfortunately, the UK banking system is going to lose market share to Asian banks and to US banks that allow their customers to use cryptocurrencies, in particular Bitcoin. So one problem with this is people are saying, well, I can't take profits and move my profits into HSBC. One solution here, if you can, never sell your Bitcoin. You can always borrow against it if you need to spend some of the accumulated value. But why would you ever want to take profits and send it over to HSBC to get paid a 0% interest rates? You're better off perhaps buying a house with it or just leaving it in Bitcoin. I would encourage everyone who's annoyed by this, just close your account with HSBC if it's possible. Vote with your feet. Over the last year or so, I've closed my accounts, my savings and checking accounts with every single US bank that gave me trouble over Bitcoin. They have no right to tell me what to do with my money, especially because I pay my taxes, I'm a law-abiding citizen, etc. And they have no right to tell me what I can do, whether I can move money into a cryptocurrency exchange or a brokerage, etc. The great thing now is that we have the great Bitcoin bank. It's obviously Bitcoin I'm talking about. There's no such thing as the Bitcoin bank. But Bitcoin is like a savings account in the cloud. It's the largest, most secure savings account in the cloud. It's a place that is immune to the money printing, the confiscation of IMF bankers, central bankers, investment bankers, politicians, etc. They cannot steal your money once it's in Bitcoin. They can print a lot of money and it just makes the value of your Bitcoin go up even more. This is a very nice bank as well, the Bitcoin Bank. It's open to everyone, regardless of race. You don't have to be a buddy of Lagarde and Sarkozy to use it. Bitcoin is open to anyone. Doesn't matter your country of origin, your credit history, your political views, etc. So I think Lagarde has a lot of nerve, especially given her background, to try to say these nasty things about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a neutral asset. It can be used, again, by bad people, and it can be used by good people. If you want to go after the bad people who break laws, you definitely should do that. But to try to shut down the fairest monetary system that's ever existed in the world is really unforgivable in my mind. And Bitcoin, when you store your money in Bitcoin, it will never freeze your account because you participated in some political activity that someone doesn't like. It will never charge you overdraft fees. It will never make you pay negative interest rates as well. And I think this is what HSBC, Lagarde, the UK banks, the European banks, and the US banks are most worried about, is that once the money is in Bitcoin, it's out of the clutches of greedy politicians and greedy central bankers. Warren Buffett has called Bitcoin rat poison. I love this meme. I've showed it a couple times, and I especially love it because we've got HSBC right here. And Bitcoin is very hard on the banking system. Negative interest rates are obviously very hard on the banking system as well. But I think this may be one reason that Warren Buffett has been selling down his banking stocks over the last 12 months. He may be worried about negative interest rates coming to the US. He may be worried about stable coins. And he's a very smart guy. I can't imagine at this point that he doesn't understand Bitcoin. And as such, he knows that the traditional banking system is not going to have the same monopoly that it's had in the past. Buffett is a monopoly investor. He loves investing in things where you do not have a choice. This is one reason he was invested in all the big banks in the US going into the great financial crisis, and especially after them. He's been a big backer of Goldman Sachs, etc. And yet he is exiting this as Bitcoin continues to lay waste to the world's fiat financial system. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.